What is up, everybody? Jameson Tank here for another episode of the Jameson on the Rocks podcast. Today, I am not going to do a solo episode. I don't usually do these. I'm honestly not a huge fan, but for the style of episode that this requires, I'm running it back. This is kind of be based off the episode I did. I'm not sure which number it is, somewhere in the 30s. How I booked my band's first tour. Apparently, a ton of you listened to that and hit me up about doing another one. I've had so many band friends messaged me this week after we announced our third tour, the Tankover tour for my band Jameson Tank. So many people hit me up saying, "Hey man, how are you booking these? You know what to do here. This stuff. Can you let me know?" And I think the easiest way to do that is just to make these kind of videos very informative. I guess more serious than the usual podcast, but I like doing these. I hope you guys enjoy this kind of stuff. Let's kind of get into it. If you haven't already watched the first one, which is how I booked my band's first tour, honestly, probably not a bad idea to watch it before this. I'm going to tag it up here for you. It'll kind of give you some of the broad strokes on like how to set up your emails, who to reach out to, that kind of stuff. That being said, I didn't watch it back because I just don't want to hear it right now. And if I do have some things wrong in there, I just don't want to know because it felt good when I made it. That's where I was. But I'm sure coming up on my third tour now, I've learned so much stuff, just unbelievable amount of stuff booking all the shows for my band. And I think it's good for everybody to at least learn and then pass it off to somebody because you kind of have a new appreciation for it when you're spending all the hours on it. But anyways, if you want to check out the first one, I'll tag a link up here. You guys should definitely listen to that if you're just getting started. If you haven't booked any shows, that kind of stuff would be probably a better watch. This one's going to be a little bit more specialized, kind of niche content for those bands that are getting going per se, but still relevant if you're a brand new band. So yeah, before we get started, I want to thank our show sponsor. Today's show sponsor is Clear Mountain Entertainment and the Classic City Jam right here in Athens, Georgia on August 27th, the first Saturday of the semester, one of the best dates of the year to be in Athens. Tickets are $10. The full lineup I have written here, it's huge and it's great. I have 1, The Angelics, 2, Florida Man, 3, Convince the Kid, 4, Red Mile Road, 5, 80 Blanco, and 6, Wim Tapley. I believe in that order. What a lineup, man. Literally 6 of the best bands in town, maybe the best 6, you know. Tickets are only $10. It's at Paloma Park. It's going to be fantastic. Clear Mountain Entertainment is also just a company you should reach out to if you're interested in booking. They're honestly another just great, like they've been doing a great job getting bands booked in town. I noticed they've really been doing a good job, Garrett especially, taking bands like the Angelics, taking bands like Recess Party and Wim and Red Mile Road and just getting them great gigs. Like they're really kind of running the booking side of town for public, if that makes sense. So they would be a great resource to reach out to if you need some sort of booking for your band. But yeah, anyways, shout out to Classic City Jam. Get your tickets. I'm going to put those in the bio as well. All right, so let's kind of knock into this thing. On the last one I did, I really had like a full plan on what I was going to say. This one, I just like took some notes because this stuff is like heavy on my mind right now because we just announced our third tour, the Tankover tour. And it's honestly, it was the toughest tour for me to book because I hate to say demand, but our tier for what we can play has increased since even the last tour. Like, there's a certain stature when you're going into your first tour that you literally should be down to take just about anything almost. Like, if it gets you into a new market, if it's almost no money, if it's no money sometimes, but it gets you somewhere new, it gets you in front of people, then you should be doing it kind of. So that would have been our first tour, which was the 2 Out to Hold tour. We literally played some places for like $100, you know. We play places, having to bring our PA, making $100, stuff like that. We probably played Loose Change like fucking 7 times on their first tour. In Clemson, just anywhere we could play. If we had a Thursday, Friday, Saturday open, we wanted to be playing, which is great. It's perfect. It's what you should be doing as your band, because gigs gets more gigs. That's the grind you should be putting in. And it's honestly panned out for us really well, getting us to this third tour. This tour, it was tougher to book because we have more demand and we had to be getting a certain amount of money at this point, to the extent of we can't just drive 6 hours and play for $100 anymore. Like, that doesn't make sense for us as a unit actually trying to make money doing this. You know, we've planted our roots in a lot of markets and we have demand in those markets where we can make, you know, 4 figures or whatever, and private events and stuff. So that was what was interesting. Big learning experience for me on this third tour, booking. But I guess what I'm saying is, if it's your first tour, take gigs. Play wherever you can. Play at the shittiest places. Play for $12. Play for $100. Play for $300. Play whatever. Know the difference between when you should be getting money and not, I guess. I mean, I wouldn't suggest playing any fraternities for free, if you get what I mean. Any Greek life stuff, that should literally never be free unless, I mean, if you knew it was going to get you another one paid, it'd be worth it. But maybe going to play some ticketed venue in a city you've never been to and knowing that you're going to sell 5 tickets probably for your own and hope the other two bands sell 30 each and you coming out of there with $62 is not a bad play to get you in a new market. Because also, as I mentioned in the other one, the best way to get venues in a certain city to book you is to play other venues in that city per se. Like if you're already have a track record, like if you have no track record there, they have no reason to book you. You're not going to bring anybody, that sort of stuff. But you're like, oh, hey, I played your venue next door twice, and here's a video, and it's packed. That's incentive, that gives the venue reasoning to book you. So I'd say we've done plenty of stuff. Like we did Tuscaloosa, and I think the first night we made $300, and then it got us into the next time we were there. We literally made like almost $2,000 at a venue, which is pretty rare. Don't get me wrong, for a public non-ticketed thing. But that's what I'm saying is we were willing to play the one for 300 to get us to the bigger one, get us in front of stuff. And I mean, off of that, I mean, the gigs kind of spitball, if that makes sense. Like, it gives you a whole pitch when you have enough gigs where it's like, wow, these guys are playing a lot. Like, if all these venues are booking them, these guys must be good. There's kind of like a given, like, all right, these guys aren't just playing once a weekend. Like, these guys are playing 3 shows a weekend for the next 4 months. Like, yeah, they're good, or at least, not necessarily. But I think it kind of gives that persona, and that's often one of my pitching points is, hey, we're fucking playing everywhere. Everywhere's booking us. You should book us too, kind of. So yeah, I would think that would be good advice. I would think off of that, off the videos, send to venues. I still think this is an area that people are missing out on, or not missing on, but just not capitalizing on would be the right word. In the beginning, I mean, film anything you can. If you can get literally your mom who's there to turn her iPhone sideways and film 2 songs, like that's huge. Like put that on YouTube and send it to venues if it looks good, especially if there's people there, because that's what they want to see. You can talk all the talk you want to talk, like, oh, we're great, man. We know 4 hours of material, yada, yada, yada. Crowds love us. You should have seen this the other week. Like, they don't give a fuck. They hear that from every band that messages them. Film it and send it to them. Tag every video you have at the bottom of your email. That's what they want to see. We've got a video from Blue Room in Statesboro, probably the best venue we played other than Georgia Theater, and it was I think it's one of those places that gets packed no matter what band's there, so that you don't really have a pitch for them. But anyways, there was like probably 900-ish people there before we even started playing, I believe was the door count. And we've got this great video, which of course it was a good call. We spent almost all we made that night on getting it filmed because I knew it'd be worth it. And I've got this one video, and it's literally just like packed. Like there's crowd everywhere. It's a bunch of crowd shots. We're barely in it. And that's the video that I send to venues. And almost always, not always, but almost always, they'll be like, wow, that looks electric. They'll be like, whoa. They'll be like, dang, dude, that video is crazy. That's the energy we need here. So there's something to be said about investing in a good video if you know you've got a big crowd in front of us that needs to be filmed. And I think video is always better than picture. Like you can have a picture of you in front of a big crowd, that's better than nothing. But if you can get a video of you and they can actually hear you and hear the crowd, like that's going to do wonders for you. And I think a lot of bands miss on this, like playing big shows, like headlining 40 Watt Club or headlining Paloma Park after a game, and like just not filming it. It's like, what are you doing? Like find a way to do that. Like even if it costs you some of your profits, like it's an investment long term to have things filmed. And excuse me there. It doesn't have to be nice footage. It can be literally, I bought a GoPro on our first tour for $75 on like Facebook Marketplace, I think. And it's literally like, I don't care about it because it was $75. So I give it to people in the crowd, and I literally handed it to people, and they filmed whole shows for us. My buddy Hutch filmed a whole Boar's Head show for us. I cut up every song and put it all on the internet, on YouTube, and I send the whole video to venues. I'm like, hey, here's a whole set if you want to see that, like give them evidence that you're not faking it, And I think the GoPro thing is a good advice. Go on Facebook Marketplace, find you a GoPro, hand it to people in the crowd. They literally want to be in your videos. They'll message you the next day going, "Hey, can I see that video that I was in? Hey, can you tag me in that?" You know, I think that's a really good sleeper thing that nobody's doing except for, I'm sure people are doing it, but when you can't, like, say you're in Charlotte, you can't afford to bring a film guy with you, you can automatically film your show by handing it to somebody in the crowd that's having a great time, and they'll film, a minute or 20 minutes. You never know. So yeah, any way that you can get your shows documented is huge. It sucked too because the first two tours we were not making much money already, and it was like the margins were already small, and I was like, hey, dude, we gotta spend this $200 here and get somebody to come film this so we can get more gigs from it. And that's like a tough decision to make when you're making $50 each a weekend or whatever, 200, 100. And but it ends up being worth it. Like, especially like I specifically made it a point to film tailgates and Greek events because I knew that if I posted it, the people that were there, if they see themselves, they're gonna share it. They're friends with other fraternity people. They're gonna see it. They're gonna be like, "Who's this band that's playing all these tailgates? Why would we not like let's hit them up?" Like, it just kind of spitballs into, like, the content is so much more key than people think. I know people rebel against it, like, I just want to make music. I just got in this to make music. Well, you're gonna have a tough time making music if you don't. Some bands can get away with it. Some bands are really good at putting out nothing, and their music is just so good that they don't need it. But I will say it's a harder or a bigger path of resistance at this point, I think. And it's not a new thing. I know everybody thinks it's like, oh, I gotta make this content. Fuck, like, literally since the 80s, like, if you weren't on MTV, you weren't killing it. If you weren't going in and doing interviews, you weren't killing it. Like, MTV was almost more important than the song back then. That's the same thing as content today. Social media, it's just the MTV of the 80s is social media in 2020. Excuse me. What is it, 2022? Yeah. Anyways. But yeah, all right. I've been rambling for a while, I think, but I think this is all important knowledge. I had a buddy ask me today, actually, how I would get in. How he was just asking how to get in touch with venues. I think this is another problem that people make is they just don't reach out. They just assume that the venue is too big to book them, or they assume, that it just wouldn't pan out, and they're like, hey, how do you find all these emails and shit? And literally, like, it's all out there. I mean, you got to do some digging, of course, but my go-to is go to their Instagram, click DM, and say, hey, hi, I was wondering if you could send me over your booking contacts number or email. Thanks. Any help would be appreciated. And usually they do. I'd say 50-50 they do. If not, go over to the right, and there's the email button on Instagram. Usually, if you click it, it says booking at insert venue name, usually, or info at booking name or whatever. So yeah, like, literally just, like, you're going to have to do some research, you know what I mean? Like, get on that bitch and start looking people up, like, there's no universal list. Any on the Move's great and all, but still, like, if their email's on there, they're getting hit up by tons of bands, and you're going to have to be individual and make it worth their time. Same with bands' tour graphics. I do this a lot. I have no shame in this. Go look at the band you want to be like that's in the local setting, maybe. Like, maybe the biggest band in your town, or the biggest band in Auburn, or the biggest band in Alabama, or the biggest band in South Carolina. And look at their tour graphic. Look at where they're playing. They always tag it in the comments. I've gotten so many gigs like this. Just go hit them up. Like, all right, if this band has been doing it for 4 years and they're playing here, that it's worth doing, Hit them up. See what happens. They book bands. What kind of what kind of bands they book. If you can find bands within your niche, look at their tour graphics and hit them up. That's what I'm telling everybody to do. I mean, look at our graphic. If you're in the Georgia, South Carolina, Alabama, like, literally just hit up the same venues and run it up. Like, we can all learn from each other. I think that would be a good way to do it. I'm going to pause for a second and thank my second show sponsor, which today is No Athens, a wonderful platform out right here in Athens, Georgia. They're making some of the best content in town. They put out these lists bi-weekly that have all the shows on in Athens. It'll be a list of literally like 50 to 75 shows. And if you're trying to keep up with everything in Athens, I'm talking food, I'm talking shows, I'm talking like where the bar deals are, go to No Athens, look them up. Great platform out right here in town. Love them. They've been a great support of the show. Anyways, moving along. All right. So I've covered a few things I wanted to cover. Make content for the show. Reach out. I mean, that's one of the biggest ones that people just don't do. They'll be like, how are you getting all these? And they're like, I'm just reaching out, Another thing is kind of knowing when the money versus exposure is what I wrote. I don't know if that's quite the right way to put it. So like I guess what I'm saying is know when it's okay to not take a lot of money per se. Like if you know, well, there's certain venues that if you know you're getting in front of a big crowd or a bigger crowd than normal, that will override the fact that you're getting paid pennies. It is sometimes very good to do that. For example, like probably some of our best shows have paid the absolute least. You know, like you never know if you're going to go in and make a ton of fans. Like there's a difference between making fans and making money. You know, per se. A lot of things we do sometimes just for the money. Nothing wrong with that per se as a band trying to be sustainable. But a lot of times we should do things just for fans, and I think that's kind of getting forgotten. Like the bigger my band personally gets, not forgotten, but it's like, oh, we could, like we could go play in front of this big crowd. No, we could go play in front of this small crowd, but they're going to give us 1,200, 1,500, $2,000. Let's do that. And I mean, you kind of have to if you're trying to make money in this game. But at the same time, if we were to make a lot of fans and only make $100, that's probably a better move usually. And I guess what I'm trying to say is like, so say somebody's trying to put you on a frat show and he's like, dude, it's our biggest event of the year. Like, I know you've never played for us. Can you do this one cheap for the first time and come out and you get in front of this big crowd? Maybe you can make some fans. Like, that would be an argument that on my first and second tour, honestly, even this tour, I would probably accept. Like if it gets you in front of a lot of people, it can very frequently be worth it. On the outside, because they'll all go to different fraternities. They'll be like, we saw this sick band, word of mouth. Hey, I'm in ATO. Do you want to play our place? Hey, I'm in Sigma Chi. Do you want to play our place next? And then you go, oh, okay, well, we'll do it for 2K. We'll do it for 3K. We'll do it for 4K. I guess kind of proving your worth is what I'm saying. Like, don't be afraid to play something. I call it the first timers rate, or like for fraternities, I say the summer rush rate. Don't be afraid to do something for less money than you're worth if it gets you to where you're going. I mean, you're a band in your first, second, third year. Like, you can take some chances financially. You're not, it's different for a band that's been doing it 6 years. It's absolutely cut their teeth. It's like, oh, dude, we cannot do this for 1,000 because we start taking 1,000, we're losing money. We're driving 6 hours. It's stupid. You know what I mean? So I guess what I'm saying is know when the exposure outrides the money. I think I've done a good job at frequently playing places where the exposure outweighs the money. I think Boar's Head in Athens is one of those for us that like it feels like we literally built a fan base at Boar's Head playing for absolutely pennies, like the lowest payment on the tour. And I've talked to him about it, and there's pretty much no chance of it going up. And I'm still playing there because I love playing there, and we built a fan base doing it. Like it ended up feeling us getting to Georgia Theater, so I'm willing to do that kind of stuff. I think most bands should be too, to an extent, of course. And also on the money versus exposure thing, there's a difference between how much work you do. So I guess this would lead more into like covers versus originals, which is still a thought that's on my mind a ton. But there's a difference between showing up to a venue and playing a 45-minute set of originals for $125 and showing up to a venue and playing 3 hours worth of covers, bringing your own PA system for $100. Do you get what I mean? So if they're paying you and you have to bring sound, like automatically you're going to have to add some money, like that should be a given, I think, hopefully. If they have sound provided, usually means you can knock off a little, because it's taking your workout by a lot. You don't have to bring 6 speakers, you don't have to bring 10 cables, you don't have to mic everything up, you're not in charge of it, So I guess what I'm saying is like, don't get taken advantage of when it comes to bringing a PA. Bringing a PA is something you should be paid for, I think. It's so much more work. It's an unbelievable amount of more work. You have to get a U-Haul, that kind of stuff. I would just say don't sleep on making sure you get paid when you have to bring sound is what I'm saying. And for fraternities, add whatever you think. Add 500 if you have to bring sound or whatever, because they can provide it. That's one of those things that can provide it. So that's an interesting thing. Knowing the difference, like that should gauge how much you're asking. Another thing I would say about asking for money, once you get a little bit of clout per se, or like you've road dogged it, like we played 85 shows in our first year, like we've proven that we're doing this thing, knowing how much to ask for is huge. Like if you never raise your rate, like then no one's going to raise it for you. Like if a fraternity has a budget of 3,000 and you go, hey man, I will do it for $1,000. Like they will never go, but oh dude, we've got 3,000. They'll be like, yeah, we're getting this band for a steal, and they'll tell their buddies they got you for 1,000, that they should reach out, and your rate might never go up. Same thing with bars. I used to be scared to ask for 1,000. I was like, oh, these bars can't afford that. And now coming into year two, it's like, oh, they most definitely can. Some of them, more than that. So start high, know your market. Like maybe if you're playing in the absolute middle of nowhere, and there's a few hundred people coming through, maybe 1,500 isn't the best to ask per se. But if you're playing in Buckhead, Atlanta, at a rich bar with rich clientele, 1,500, 2,000 might be extremely fair for them. And you'll never know. I mean, ask for a lot and let them bring you down. Like if they don't respond to your offer, give them 2 weeks and be like, hey man, I just wanted to check in, see what you guys was this kind of in the budget. If not, we could probably do minus 300 or whatever, and kind of try to work with them, make them think they're getting a deal as big. Greek life is a lot different. People are always asking me advice on Greek life. I don't feel like I've mastered it at all quite yet, because you need to know the difference between when a fraternity wants you and when a fraternity wants a band. Because if they're hitting you up 4 days before the event, they probably just need a band, and they're probably wanting to pay $1,000. Uh, Very dependent, on that. Fraternities are what I'm saying is fraternities are all so different that I'm even yet to get a gauge on how much to ask for most events. My price varies within the thousands, on how much to ask Greek life. Sororities, completely different ballpark. They don't have a social chair, I believe. They look bands up on the internet that they like on Instagram, and they hit them up. And I think from what I've read is that sororities have 4 times as many members as fraternities. So always ask for more at sororities, I know, is a rule. So, but anyways, I don't want to get into the Greek life thing too hard because it's so hard to get them. And you got to reach out, but you also really, the only way to get Greek life stuff is to build a demand for yourself public. Like play public and you'll meet Greek life people. Probably not as many as you'd like, but you will meet Greek life people. And I think 80% of the great Greek life gigs we have gotten have been, they saw us in person. So, hey, you should come play our fraternity, or sorority or whatever. And that's an interesting thing about our last tour that I didn't like. So we were booked solid for the spring semester, which would have been the Built Different tour, which was a great time, by the way. Fantastic. Um, but we were booked solid far out. And I didn't like that because as the semester started, we were getting these last minute Greek offers for significantly more money than we were getting public, excuse me. So like we'd be booked at a bar for $600 or whatever on a Friday, and then 2 weeks out, Sigma Chi UGA would hit us up and be like, hey dude, can you guys play Friday? And I'd be like, yeah, what's the budget? He'd be like, 2,500. It's like, well, fuck. Like we morally, I shouldn't cancel in this venue, but also this venue probably doesn't give a fuck about me, and we can make 4x, 5x what we're gonna make. So that kind of makes it a tough decision, but it makes it even tougher when you're on the bill with 3 bands, or you've had something booked for 4 months, and then 2 weeks out you get hit up by a Greek life person. It's like, oh man, I wish I could do that. I mean, that's just a money thing. Like the venues, this is another thing I'd like to know. Mostly, I can't say this about all venues, and I mean no disrespect to any venues I do play. Most of them really don't give a fuck about you. You know what I mean? Like there's always a new band coming in that they're excited about, and they're like, if you just stop playing, they're not counting on you as much as you think. Like I used to think that like I owed these bars something because they're putting us on. Like, oh, they've been great to us, but like, have they really? You know what I mean? Like they don't need you as much as you think. There's always another band they can bring in. They're simply utilizing you in the best way they can, which is smart for them. Gets people in the door, that kind of stuff. I would say that was another thing I learned this tour, especially, as don't let venues kind of push you around. Don't feel like you owe venues anything. Like I used to think like, oh, if these venues would just give us a shot, that would be it. And then they gave us a shot, and it was like, all right, I could see how playing here literally forever is not going to take me where I need to be, which is a huge realization for somebody that wants to do this for a living. Is that hey, we don't need these venues. Like there's venues that I would have died to have played last tour that hit me up for this tour, and I was like, no, I'm good. Like it's, I just know now. I know more. I know they don't care. I know the vibe's not right. I know the money's not right. So it's like, we don't need you anymore. But when you're in that first tour era, you do need them. You need to play anywhere you can. So it once you change that dynamic on, I don't need these venues, I think that's huge for just everything. Because it rewires how much you're willing to take for gigs. Like the, like it just rewires. There's something to be said about the energy of you being to a venue, being like, hey, we'd love to play. We would love to, whatever. We could do it for free, even if you need to, versus, yeah, man, if you guys want us to come play, we'll do it. 3 hours is $1,200. Sweet. Let me know. The energy of that is so different. Like, just knowing what you've got, kind of. And that is a byproduct of being good and putting your hours in. Like, you can't do that until you put your hours in, road dog, that kind of stuff. So I'm not quite sure I was going with that, but I think that was the point I was trying to get across, was the energy of, like, just knowing how to push yourself once you have some clout, like knowing your worth, kind of. Like, if a fraternity were to hit me up for tomorrow for $600, I would never fathom that. Like, I would never entertain that at that rate, because first off, we play more for more than that public almost always now. And second off, it's just, I know their budgets are higher than that. I know how much their budget is per party, and that is like bottom tier for that kind of thing. And that being said, though, 2 tours ago, if a fraternity hit me up for literally $400 to $800, I was thrilled. You know what I mean? I was ecstatic. I would have done it in a heartbeat. Which is important, just to see the growth. If that makes sense. Hold on, let me check this. Ooh, got a gig just texting me right now. I'm excited about that. Okay, Oxford, Mississippi. Oh, that would be awesome. All right, sweet. Sorry, that's a gig right there. I'm stoked about that. Okay. What was I saying? Yes. So what I'm getting at is, lost my train of thought. That's exciting. Got a good gig. See, like, that's, you got to be available too. Um, like, have your ears to the ground, get in group meets, this kind of stuff, because gigs lead to more gigs. Gigs spitball into more. If you can pitch yourself and say that you have a tour to a venue, it gives them an incentive to want to book you, if that makes sense. Like, oh, these guys are touring. Like, oh, we could be on this tour graphic. Oh, we should get this band there. Everybody's booking them. I know I've kind of already said all this stuff, but I'm trying to reiterate that there's a momentum that comes when you have 10 gigs booked versus you being like, hey, can we play? Like, we don't have any gigs right now, but we would love whatever dates you got free. We'll take them. There's a different energy. There's a momentum that comes with it, and it really spitballs into, like, getting these gigs. Like, by the end of the 2 Out to Hold tour, as I mentioned earlier, or the Build Different tour, excuse me, we were getting these offers for sorority stuff and fraternity stuff all in the second half of the tour. So in the first half of the tour, we had like our 3 or 4 fraternities booked, and that was great. But we played all those. We played Georgia Theater. That was huge for us. And then after that, it was like every week on Monday, we were getting hit up. Hey, can you guys do Friday? Hey, can you guys do Friday? Hey, can you guys do this next Friday? Hey, this is KD. Can you do this at Boar's Head? And it was like a lot of them panned out, but a lot of them didn't, because we were booked at, in Knoxville. We were booked in Columbia. Or we were booked in wherever. And it's like, oh, we can't cancel this. We've had this booked for months. Like, we can't just bail on this venue. But certain times, you have to. Certain times you have to. One time we got sick, and it kind of panned out that we healed up in time to make the KD thing work. But that's another thing that I thought about a lot on this tour, is I purposely left key dates open, and they're still open at the moment. So we'll see if this pans out for me. I felt like this was really risky, but if it paid off, it was going to be great. I left key dates open for Greek life stuff. As a band that's focused on trying to get more Greek life stuff, that's where the money is. That's where the bigger crowds are. That's where the building a fan base is for us and our kind of music per se. I purposely left key dates open for that. Like, if it's a Saturday, we're from Athens, Georgia. If it's a Saturday in Athens with a big home game like Auburn, I do not want to be booked in fucking Charleston or Charlottesville or non-college towns. If I'm going to be booked, it better be private. It better be in Athens or another college town, because I'm fine with that if we're getting paid right. But, like, knowing what dates to leave open, like, first 2 weeks of the semester, these actually might not pan out, so we're going to see. But I purposely left Thursday, Friday, Saturday of the first 2 weeks of the semester open, because I know a lot of Greek people are planning last-minute stuff, events, date nights, tailgates, stuff like that for that. And at the moment, we're coming up on them, and they haven't filled because we had 2 cancellations, which is unfortunate. But I'm kind of learning, like, at least they're there, and at least we're not playing for, $400 somewhere, and we get hit at last minute, and I can't cancel it or whatever. So that was the strategy, and it kind of works in the way of, I didn't put anything in the tour graphic that wasn't super official. If we're not getting that date, I left it open so that Greeks can go look at the calendar, which Greek life people do this, by the way. They'll go look at your calendar. They'll go look at your website. And be like, oh, he's free on the 17th. Let's get him for that day. Let's get him for that. Let's get him for that game, you know? That was a big realization between tour 2 and tour 3 for me, was if you're focused on something, like, don't just fill your calendar up just to fill your calendar up. Have a reason. Like, if it's breaking you to a new market, that's great. Book that, you know? But if you're just going to book a Saturday in a non-college town during the semester, it's like you could potentially lose money that you would have made on that, if that makes sense. So yeah, also another thing I want to talk about a little bit. That's kind of all I have to say about the Greek life for the moment. But and that's only niche if you're into that. Some people that do all originals are really not into that market until they get bigger, which is understandable. Another thing I thought about a lot on this tour, I know I greased over it, is originals versus covers. And before I knock into this, I want to thank my last show sponsor, which is Clark's Collective, wonderful bar in Athens, Georgia. Speaking of booking, they're booking bands right now. They're getting pretty booked up for fall, so you might want to check with them. Rip over there has been wonderful to us. First show sponsor that we ever got. They really took a shot on us. We're doing some shirts that are coming out soon. You guys are going to dig. They got it going on, man. They're a great place to play. They give you 10% of the bar, I believe, maybe 15. And you book it on a good night, you pull a great crowd, you'll make money. It's great. So yeah, everybody check out Clark's Collective online. I believe the website is www.clarkscollective.com. Don't quote me on that, but it'll be in the bottom of this episode, so check it there. All right, so covers versus originals. This has been weighing on me a lot as somebody who has very frequently lashed out against going straight all originals to start with. In hindsight, I was probably a little too tough on it, and I learned my lesson in the way of we're at the point to where we can't just keep playing covers. My band personally, Jameson Tank, we've done both pretty well, which I think is a great strategy for anybody interested. Know enough songs to do the cover gigs, make fans at those, and then the next time play originals has kind of been my strategy per se. That being said, we've done Georgia Theater, almost all originals. We do Cobra, all originals. Like, we do ticketed venues all around the place, all original, with a few covers sprinkled in. But I think my realization coming into this tour, maybe towards the end of last tour, was that covers is never going to take me where I want to be completely. And what I mean by that is, like, as somebody who's trying to do this living, trying to do arenas one day, trying to sell stuff out, trying to go ticketed, like, you eventually have to stop being a cover band. And it's easy to stay a cover band because the payments at the start are higher and the exposure is higher. Like, you can get in front of bigger crowds easier. Like, I don't know anybody that can just come out of the gate and their first couple shows, you know, be in front of 500 people because they're originals. That's extremely rare. You know what I mean? Some people pull it off. I always was under the mindset that if we could just hook them on the covers in our show, because our show is more important than our originals at start, then they would eventually become fans of us, and no matter what we put out, they'd be fans of that. And I still think that's a great strategy for anybody playing covers. Keep it up, but know that eventually you're going to have to change, and we're now in the process of changing to where I was frequently just being a weenie about playing originals at places because, like, we play in a lot of places that are super cover-esque and, like, they're not trying to hear that stuff. And I still believe that kind of stuff. Like, there's a certain style venue for where you can do all originals. There's a certain style venue where you do all covers, you know. And knowing the difference is important also for your pitch on, like, hitting up venues. Like, if you hit them up and be like, yo, we can play an hour original set that'll just blow you guys away, and it's a 3-hour cover venue, they're not even going to email you back, you know. So know the difference. Know when to put it in your email. Know what you're trying to do long term. I think it's interesting. It's such an interesting topic to me because my band, Jameson Tank, I know I've said that about 100 times, like, we've done a great job of doing both. And I think if you can do both, that is a really great way to remain profitable while also building your brand and your actual, you know, fans of your music. But at a certain point, we're to the point where we're going to stop doing the cover things in the next, you know, 2 years, I hope. And go all ticketed, go all original, like certain bands that I look up to, like Hotel Fiction, like the Stews are two that I really watch. And if you watch the Stews, they came on the show on like episode 60 or something, and they were telling me about how just from day one they did minimal amount of covers. They just came out with their originals, like, hey, this is it, you know. And there's a certain energy on that too. Is like, hey, this is our originals, like, this is what you're getting, like, book us for that or whatever. And they've absolutely just been killing it, selling out venues in Boston, New York, like all over the place, just murdering it. They built a demand for their tunes. They play them so well. Their performance is great. I honestly wonder, they're the band I look up to right now in the sense of I look back, I look at what they've done and wonder if I should have taken their path a little differently. But at the same time, like I think I took the right path. But I'm transitioning to a Stu's-esque, Hotel Fiction-esque path, which is just make great originals. I mean, that's what it comes down to. Make great originals, be proud to play them, that kind of stuff. Because I just realized is that like we played in front of 900 people at Blue Room, and you got 50 new followers after, but like how many of them actually fuck with us if we stop playing covers? You know what I mean? There's a difference. There's a big difference, and realizing that was kind of depressing, but kind of huge. Like any band can go into a crowd in front of 900 people and play a popular cover and just rock it. You know what I mean? Like they can just demolish. But you get your songs like that. That's something different. That's career. That's longevity. I don't want to be 33 playing cover venues, clean cover sets. So I'll let you guys know how that go. That's another thing that came to mind is trying to find a good middle on that. I really didn't get as many bills as I want for this tour. But I mean, this is like realizing all this stuff that I'm telling you as I'm saying it is huge. And I hope you guys are getting some value from it. Another thing that I wanted to note, another thing I was frequently against was show swapping. I wasn't against it. I just didn't like the idea of like if I could have 3 Athens bands play a bill and it sells 200 more tickets. I always thought that was worth it as opposed to having 2 Athens bands and 1 Nashville band or 2 Athens bands and 1 Greenville, South Carolina band sell 200 less tickets, but maybe the Greenville band will trade with you. I never liked that, but now that like kind of off the Stews thing, I see their schedule and they've got us for Blue Room, which is hype. Got tickets to that's for sale if anybody wants them in Statesboro. But like they have an opener for every show now because it makes it more of a bill and it like that makes a network. I think the building the band network was bigger than I originally imagined. After doing a headlining tour of like just us headlining cover venues and not needing any bands. I think it's big. I think it's important, and it makes it more show-esque when you have an opener. It builds a bigger network. Those bands will trade with you. Those bands will get on different shows. When you have 2 bands that can sell tickets, that's huge, and I think it shows. I think that was a big realization for me is that show swapping could be great for the network, and building that network will never happen if you're always playing alone. So my goal for this tour was to kind of book more original venues, book more bills, and I didn't really succeed at that. I still a lot of like cover-esque gigs and fraternity gigs, but our rate is probably tripled, we're making twice as much money. We've got more money in guarantees on this tour than we made on our first tour. And yes, so what I'm saying is, just figure out where you want to be. Look up to bands above you. I look up to Stews. Those are my homies. They're the ones that I've got my eye on right now going. They're doing exactly what I want to do, which they've built a fan base, they built demand, and they have built drive for their originals. They make great fucking songs, and therefore it's paying off for them and selling tickets in every market they go to. So yeah, just kind of think about where you want to be and don't look up to the wrong bands. I was actually looking up to a band that I just recently realized is pretty deep in their career and like still playing the kind of shows I would not want to be playing when I'm deep in my career, if that makes sense. So realizing that is huge. Make sure you're looking up to the right people. I hope you guys got some value from this. I hope you enjoyed it. I had a good time making it. I can't believe I went 38 minutes literally just talking to myself. That's why these solo podcasts are so weird. Like it's like literally you're just ranting your thoughts, but it's fun. I hope you guys all enjoyed it. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments. I'd like to thank my show sponsors one more time. Shout out to Clark's Collective, wonderful bar downtown Athens, Georgia. Beautiful little place. They're working on a dope back patio thing that's going to have like a hedge theme. They got a new hedge wall on the stage. Place is sick. If you guys want to get booked by them, DM me. I'll send you Rip's number and he'll get you in there for sure. I also want to thank No Athens, brand new platform out of right here in Athens, Georgia. They're making some amazing content. They're making this funny band content. They have a gnome theme where they walk in real low with the camera. I love that. They are just one of my favorite platforms in town, and I love what they do, and I love how they're putting bands on. It's very similar to the podcast in a way of like they're collecting bands and like doing promo videos with them all. So yeah, shout out No Athens, and also Clear Mountain Entertainment, Classic City Jam right here in Athens, Georgia, August 27th. The band lineup is crazy. Let me look it back up. I want to make sure I get them all in here. Here we go. Hold on. Okay, Wim Tapley, The Angelics, Florida Man, Red Mile Road, 80 Blanco, Convince the Kid. All of my favorite bands in town are playing August 27th, $10. Hit up Clear Mountain Entertainment if you need some help booking. I think they do it for a pretty reasonable rate. And yeah, thank you guys for watching. Subscribe to the show if you don't mind. I really appreciate that. I really appreciate y'all listening in 40 minutes. Let me know if you got some value from this, man. I never know if these hit home or not. Make sure you watch the other How I Booked My First Tour. I think that'd be a good watch for a lot of you. And often I like to end this with like take all this with a grain of salt. I'm still learning. I've not at all done what I need to do in the sense of like I'm nowhere close to where I want to be. So this is just a video from a guy learning how to tour, man. So yeah, love you guys. Thanks for watching. Jameson on the Rocks out.